Okay, I have to be honest with you. When I saw the topic for today's deep dive, I I thought I was being pranked.
I can see why.
I mean, we cover a lot of ground on this show, tech, history, psychology, but today we are talking about the lumber aisle at Home Depot,
Specifically the 2x4s, apparently.
the 2x4s, because there's this massive social movement, and it's not just some TikTok trend where single people are ditching dating apps to go, hang out in hardware stores.
Right.
The logic being, if you want a partner who is solid, go where the building materials are.
It sounds absurd on the surface. I get it.
It sounds like a bad sitcom setup.
It does. But here is where it gets fascinating. We aren't just looking at a quirk of modern dating. We're analyzing a whole stack of research, specifically writings from a JCM at 7 Cubed 7 Labs, including the book The Seven and New Relationships.
Okay.
And the argument here is that this Home Depot migration is actually a symptom of a mathematical crisis in human connection.
Wait, a mathematical crisis?
Yes. The whole premise is that we've stripped the dimensions out of dating. We're trying to plug multidimensional beings into one-dimensional apps, and it's causing this, societal short circuit. The author calls the solution the 2401 lens.
204001. That is a wildly specific number.
It is. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand why that number might just be the difference between, dying alone and finding what these texts call a supernatural union.
Okay, that is a big promise. So let's back up a little. Why is the hardware store suddenly beating the algorithm? Is the lighting better?
It is definitely not the lighting, no. It all comes down to data density.
Data density.
Yeah. The material opens with this story of a widower the author met in a hardware store. This guy had been married for 38 years, lost his wife to cancer, and he said something that sounds simple but is actually, profound. He said, "It's better to meet in person. You can look eye to eye and see that person for what they are."
Which, sure, classic advice. Touch grass, meet people in the real world.
But look at why he said that. JCM calls this the difference between pixel data and volumetric data.
Okay.
When you are on a dating app, what are you actually looking at?
A photo. A bio.
Yeah.
Maybe, like an anthem by The Weeknd.
Right. You're looking at a flat representation. It's one-dimensional. But a human being is volumetric. The source says we have 7 distinct dimensions of expression.
7.
So when you see someone in the lumber aisle, you aren't just seeing their face. You see how they handle a problem. You hear the tone of their voice. You see if they're patient with the staff. You can feel their energy feel.
So in the aisle, you're getting a full data download instantly. On the app, you're just getting a thumbnail.
Exactly. And this apparently explains the great app collapse we're seeing in the stats. And the numbers, they are brutal. Women on apps are rejecting roughly 94% of the profiles they see.
Wait, 94%? That's nearly everyone.
It is nearly everyone. And men are swiping right on about 60%, just casting this huge, desperate net. It's a total disaster. But the research argues this isn't because women are impossible to please or men are just, thirsty. It's because the tool itself is broken. It's like if I showed you one single musical note on a piece of paper and asked, "Do you like the song?" What would you say?
I'd say, I don't know, play the song.
Exactly. You'd say no because there's not enough data. That's what he calls the one-dimensional trap. We're rejecting people because we can't hear the music of who they are through a screen.
And this leads to this really interesting diagnostic term the author uses. He says people aren't undateable, they are underdimensioned.
This is the root cause, and to really get it, we have to look at something called the Oxford paradox.
I read this part 3 times. I'm not going to lie. It hit a little close to home. Break down the paradox for me.
So an Oxford study highlighted this trend where modern women report higher life satisfaction than men, largely because, they've absolutely crushed it in education and careers over the last 30 years.
Right.
But at the same time, they report worse mental health, more anxiety, and more physical pain.
So on paper, they're winning. But in reality, they're struggling.
So why? The 2401 theory says it's because we've spent decades telling people, both men and women, to maximize one single dimension of their being.
The cognitive career dimension.
That's the one. We built a generation of people who are incredible at their jobs, that's one dimension, but have completely neglected the other 6.
Okay, we keep saying the other 6. We should probably define these. If I'm a 7-dimensional being, what are the dimensions?
Think of them like floors in a building. You have the physical, so your health, your vitality, the cognitive, your career, intellect, the
Hmm.
emotional, which is your ability to regulate feelings, the relational, how you treat others,
Hmm.
the spiritual, your connection to something bigger, the creative sexual, which is your generative power, and finally the temporal, which is how you relate to time.
Okay, that is a lot of floors.
It is, and the problem is you might meet a guy who has the physical and cognitive floors, like penthoused out. He's rich and he's ripped, but his emotional floor is condemned and his spiritual floor is totally empty.
So he's a skyscraper with no foundation.
And you can't build a life in a building like that. That is what underdimension means. It isn't that you aren't good enough. It's that you're, well, incomplete.
This moves us into the heavy lifting of the episode, the consciousness physics. Because the author claims that love isn't just a feeling, it's a frequency.
This is where we leave the self-help aisle and we enter the physics lab. The core premise of the 7-Up relationships is that relationships operate on these specific frequency bands, or C levels, consciousness levels.
Sea levels.
And if you aren't broadcasting on the same frequency, you physically cannot connect. It's like an FM radio trying to pick up a text message.
Okay, so let's walk through the scale, because this might actually explain why my college relationship was such a disaster. Start at the bottom, C1.
C1 is survival mode. The frequency is 7.83 hertz, which is the Earth's resonance. This is purely transactional.
This is, I need you to pay half the rent.
Or, I need you so I'm not alone. It's entirely fear-based. The mindset is, I am incomplete and I need to consume you to survive. The success rate for long-term happiness here is about 15%.
Ouch. Okay, let's step up a level, C2.
C2 is emotional awareness, 78.3 hertz. This is where the vast, vast majority of modern couples live and, frankly, die. The mindset is, you make me happy.
That sounds nice. Isn't that what we want?
It sounds nice, but it's a trap. It's pure validation seeking. It's the you complete me Hollywood model. The problem is emotions are volatile. One day you make me happy, the next day you annoy me. So the relationship just rides this roller coaster of high highs and low lows.
The Romeo and Juliet effect.
Exactly. And we all know how that ended. It's unstable. If you want what the source calls a supernatural union, you have to cross the threshold to C3.
C3, the power level.
Right. 783 hertz. This is the big shift from being a consumer to a creator. In a C3 relationship, you aren't looking at each other asking, do you like me? You're standing side by side, looking outward and saying, what are we going to build?
Give me a real-world example. How does a fight differ between a C2 couple and a C3 couple?
That's a great question. A C2 couple fights about feelings. You hurt me. You didn't text me back. You don't care about me. It's just this endless loop of insecurity.
Been there.
A C3 couple fights about the mission. Hey, our goal is to build this business or this family or this life. This behavior is slowing us down. How do we fix the protocol?
That is a completely different energy.
Yeah.
It's objective, not subjective.
It's removing the ego from the equation. And then at the top, you have C4, quantum entanglement. That's 7,830 hertz.
Okay, this is where the text gets a little woo-woo, but stick with us, folks.
It sounds wild, but it's based on resonance. At C4, the separation dissolves. It's described as telepathic. You don't need to explain yourself because you are operating as one consciousness. The source even says we are one flesh is not a metaphor, it's a technical description of the connection.
And the big failure point, the reason so many people are miserable, is consciousness mismatch.
Exactly. Imagine you are a woman operating at C3. You want to build an empire, you're spiritually grounded, and you go on a date with a guy at C1 who's just trying to pay his bills and play video games.
It's not just that he's lazy. It's that he literally cannot receive your signal.
It's like trying to run ChatGPT on a Commodore 64. The hardware cannot process the software. It's an incompatibility of physics, not just personality.
Okay, so we have the dimensions, we have the frequencies. Now we have to tackle the title of this deep dive, the 2401 lens. I was trying to do the math on a napkin while I was reading this, and I got lost. Where does 2401 come from?
Okay, let's break it down. This is the formula for a soulmate, or what they call a supernatural union. The author says a human being isn't just a body, we are a grid.
A grid.
We have 7 levels of being, the C scale we just talked about. We
Yeah.
have 7 dimensions of expression, physical, emotional, etc. And we have 7 temporal states.
Whoa, hang on. Temporal states. Are we time traveling now?
In a way, yes. Think about it. When you really love someone, you aren't just loving them right now at 2:0 p.m. on a Tuesday. You have to love the child they were. That's the past. You have to love the trauma they carry. That's historical. You love them in the present. You love the potential of who they will become. That's the future.
Okay.
You even love their eternal nature. There are 7 states of time you occupy.
So I'm 7 levels deep, 7 dimensions wide, and existing in 7 different time frames.
Now multiply that. 7 cubed. 7 times 7 times 7 is 343. That means there are 343 aspects of you.
343. Okay.
Now, when you connect with another person, those 343 aspects of you interact with their 343 aspects across the 7 dimensions of relationship. So 343 times 7 equals 2,401.
2,401 potential connection points.
Exactly. Think of your soul as a massive docking station with 2,401 ports. Now look at a C1 survival relationship. You connect physically through sex, and maybe you connect on paying bills for survival. You are plugged in at maybe 10 points.
Out of over 2,000?
Yes. That is why you can be married for 20 years and feel completely, utterly alone. You are experiencing dimensional starvation. You are 99% unconnected.
Man, that is bleak. But it makes so much sense. It explains that roommate feeling some couples get.
But a C4 relationship, you're connecting on the spiritual, the intellectual, the creative, the past, the future. You're plugged in at 1,000, maybe 2,000 points. That's what creates that feeling of invincibility.
But here's my skepticism coming out. If I have 2,401 specific ports, the odds of finding someone who perfectly matches that grid must be astronomical. Like winning the lottery twice while getting struck by lightning.
The author actually calculates it. By random chance, the odds are 1 in 10 to the power of 872.
So, impossible. We're all doomed.
If you treat dating like a lottery, yes, you're absolutely doomed. If you rely on swiping and luck, you will never find it. But, and this is the hopeful solution part, this is where the physics flips. The law of the universe isn't just probability, it's resonance. Like attracts...
The magnet concept?
Yeah. If you are a radio tuned to 98.5 FM, you don't have to search the entire world to find the song playing on 98.5 FM. You just have to tune yourself in, and the signal finds you.
Right.
The source argues that if you do the work to become a C3 or C4 person, if you build out your 2,401 dimensions, then finding your partner shifts from impossible to inevitable.
The text mentions a specific group here, the 144,000. Is that a literal number or is it a concept?
In this context, it refers to a network. The idea is that there's a wave of people, maybe the person listening to this right now, who are waking up to this new standard. They're tired of C1 dating. They are tuning their radios to this higher frequency.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm single and I'm having this moment of, wow, I'm underdimensioned, what do I actually do? The source mentions a 90-day stabilization protocol.
Yes, this is the practical application part. And the advice is drastic. Stop dating.
Cold turkey.
Cold turkey. Because dating is usually a C1, C2 activity. It's shopping for a quick fix. You need to switch from that to preparation for recognition. The protocol is 90 days of building the building.
Okay, break that down. What does a guy do on a Tuesday morning during this protocol?
For men, the instruction is to build competence. You need to fill in those empty floors. If you're fit but you're broke, you work on the financial dimension. If you're rich but you're emotionally stunted, you go to therapy. That's the emotional dimension. You're trying to become C3 material because you cannot attract a queen if you're operating like a pawn.
And for the women, what's the protocol?
For women, the shift is often about valuation. Stop filtering for height and salary. Those are one-dimensional metrics. Start filtering for capacity. Can he solve problems? That's cognitive. Is he kind to the waiter? That's relational. Does he have a mission? That's spiritual. You are preparing yourself to recognize a multidimensional man, not just a tall one.
You use that word recognize. The source makes a really big deal about the difference between choosing and recognizing.
This is my favorite part, actually. At C4, you don't choose a partner. You don't make a pros and cons list. You recognize them.
What does that feel like?
It's described as a phenomenon where the fear just dissolves instantly. There is a sense of, oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. It's not, you're cute. It's, we have work to do.
We have work to do.
Yeah.
That changes the whole dynamic. It makes the relationship a job, but in a good way. A mission.
And it leads to the unified field. The math of 1 + 1 equals 3. When two high-frequency people connect, they birth a third entity, the relationship itself. And this entity has power. It creates exponential growth. You can make more money together, create more art, solve bigger problems than either of you could alone.
The text calls this reality creation.
Exactly. You stop fighting each other and you start shaping the world around you.
I want to touch on something a little delicate before we wrap up.
Yeah.
The text talks about sacred sexuality. How does that fit into all this math?
It fits perfectly. In C1, sex is just friction. It's stress relief. But in this framework, intimacy is consciousness technology. It's a generator. When you have that 2,401 point connection, intimacy actually ramps up your energy. It clears your mind. It empowers your creative dimension. It's the fuel for the unified field.
So let's bring this home to the listener who feels like they've missed the boat. Maybe they're 40, 50, divorced. They're thinking, I just don't have the energy to build 7 dimensions.
And I really want you to hear this clearly. The source material promises that loneliness is not a life sentence. It is just a symptom.
A symptom of what?
It's a symptom of dimensional starvation. You are hungry for a 7-course meal, and the world keeps handing you a saltine cracker.
And we keep eating the cracker, wondering why we're still hungry.
Exactly. The solution isn't to learn to love the cracker. The solution is to go into the kitchen and learn to cook. Build your life, fill out your dimensions. Because the law of physics says that when you build the building, the tenant must arrive. It is a mathematical certainty.
That reminds me of the server who was mentioned in the article. She was exhausted, lonely, just waiting for someone to save her.
And the advice to her wasn't a pickup line. It was, you are not undateable. You are underdimensioned. Build your spiritual room. Build your creative room. When you become a C4 being, you become a lighthouse. And ships always find the lighthouse.
That is a completely different way to look at being single. It's not a waiting room. It's a training ground.
It is the preparation for the grand union.
I love that. So here's the takeaway for everyone listening. Stop asking, why am I single? And start asking, which dimension of myself is currently empty?
Stop swiping for pixels. Start building for volume.
Yet, hey, if you need a place to start, maybe take a walk through the lumber aisle. You never know who's building a whole world over there.
Just look for the person checking the straightness of the 2x4s. That's the one.
I think I'm heading there right now. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you in the next dimension.